Hi, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and thank you for joining me. In this week's, we're going to cover a multi-tab, both horizontally and vertical training, in which we're going to start building from the ground up so you can see every type of detail, every feature, every conditional format as we build out the application before your eyes. So it's going to be a really amazing training. It's going to be part one of an employee manager that's going to extend for multiple weeks. So I'm looking forward to bringing this to you. Let's get started. Alrighty, I've had a lot of requests for an employee manager, so it's about time we get one done. And I wanted to show you a versatile tab, both horizontal and vertical, using only cells and no shapes. In the past, we've done ones with shapes horizontally and vertically as well, but I wanted to show you one with no shapes and just using the cells. It's actually an easier, maybe not as beautiful, but it's much easier to create, and it also looks great. So let's go ahead and get on that. This is going to be the first part of many parts to this employee manager. We're going to be adding lots of features. In fact, most of those features are going to come from your suggestions. So it's going to be great if I can get your feedback on this. And so I know exactly what to add in, what you want to see. And so it's going to be based primarily on what you want to see in an employee manager. So we're going to start out with something very general, and then we're going to add features. So please make sure, whether it's Facebook or YouTube or any other social media, to go ahead and add in your comments, what you want to see, what features you want, what's important to you, so I can try to get those in. All right, first up, we're going to add a header. That's what I've been doing here as I'm talking, and we're just going to create a fade. And now we're going to use the three colors, these three blues, as our primary colors. And we're going to stretch from a medium blue to a little bit lighter blue on the fade. So that's going to be our top row here, and then our second row here, we're just going to extend it to R, but it's not so critical how far we go. We can add to that later. And the second part of our fade is going to be one narrowed down to that, and so we're going to fill that with our medium to light, medium, and then to our very light, and this is going to be our primary background color. So we can set that, fading it down from darker to lighter. Now we can go ahead and set our background color. We'll just go down. We're going to go down a lot in these cases because we're using a tab. So we'll go down to whatever here, and then just set our primary background color as this background color here. Okay, so now we have our fade. Let's add our title. We'll go ahead and add in, we're going to call this Employee Manager. And let's merge and cell these, let's say across maybe to J. We're going to increase those and merge and center it up there, and now we'll increase the font, and also let's give it a new font, perhaps Arial rounded. Let's take a look, see if something a little bit nicer than just your standard. Okay, this should work. Alright, so let's go ahead and bold it, increase that a little bit, and now I also want to increase these to, let's just say 18 or something like that. Increase those a bit. Alright, so that's going to cover that, and now we've got our basic format, and what I want to do is I want to, in row 2, I want to add an employee here, and so this is going to be employee, and then what I want to do is I want to have the user select from a box. Now we're going to add this in the future, but at least I want to set up the main parts, and then maybe in I want to put the employee ID, and then in J we're going to put that ID. So let's just put 005 for now, just as a placer, or let's do 1005. And so I'm going to place this to left. This gives me the basic framework of the screen that we're going to work on, and then I also want to right and left justify that. I want to increase these just a little bit to maybe 12 or 14 or something a little bit bigger than that, perhaps 13. Okay, so this is going to be our basic header here, and we can go ahead and format those cells. We're going to use our basic color of border. We're going to use this blue here as going to be our basic border color. We're going to wrap it all the way around and then use a dashed in the middle. Alright, so that's covered. We're going to leave row 3 blank, and we're going to start our tabs in row 4. So we're going to set our horizontal tabs. Let's start out with general info in our first. And then I want time, clock, history. These are going to be our tabs. I want payroll history. And then I want payroll details. Payroll details is going to be our big one. We're going to add vertical tabs in that one. All right, so this is our basic tab structure. Let's go ahead and center that. And I'll put some borders around it now. So we're going to use a little bit larger borders. Same color of our borders. So let's go to that same color blue, and we'll use it, not the thinnest border, and we'll just cover all the borders for now. I want to give it a background color. I want to get, what we're going to do is we're going to give it a background color. That color is going to be the non-active color, and then with conditional formatting we're going to give it the active color. So we can format those cells using pretty much the same colors that we did before under the fill here, and we're going to fill effects, and then what we'll add is we're going to add a light to dark. So let's go ahead, light, and then a little bit darker to medium, using those same color blues. All right, so now we've got our basic tab structure, and now let's go ahead and take care of our main section here. And I want to, each section I want to create basically, let's say about 20 rows. So let's go down to 24. Just put a border around that. So let's format the cells, and let's put a thick border around that. And then we're going to duplicate that, basically that process, for each of the 4 tabs. This one here. And so for each of the 4 tabs, I want something just like that. And we're going to go from 5 to 24, 25 to 44, and so on. We're going to do that about 4 times. So we'll copy and paste that down all the way for each of the 4 tabs. All right, so that covers it to 84. We're going to create ones beyond this, but these are the 4 tabs. This is our 4 tab structure. And this is our general info. This is our time clock info, our payroll history. So what I want to happen is when we click general info, I want this section to appear. When I click time clock history, I want this section to appear. Let's just put a general, just a temporary label in here, general info, so we know what section is, and then we're going to work on time clock, because it's easier to work on once we get the tabs. Time clock history, this is going to be replaced. And then payroll history. This just helps me label the section just temporarily. Payroll detail. Okay, so now we have all 4 sections. Now we have all 4 sections. So what I want to happen now is when I click general info, I want 5 to 23 to show up, and so on and so forth for each of the 3. And we can do that with VBA. I also want to mark which row, which column has been selected. So let's put that right in here. Selected column, and then we're going to put that right here. Let's just say it was 5 for now. And I also want to know the selected row. We're going to use that a little bit later on, but I want to just put a placeholder here. So we have that too. So we have selected column, selected row. And what I want to do is I want to add conditional formatting. So for example, if this is column 5, it's column 6, column 7, whichever column is selected, I want to place conditional formatting to give us that effect. And what I want to do is I want to blend the bottom down to here. So I'll show you. It's relative. So we're going to highlight what we want to place our conditional formatting in. We're going to go into conditional formatting and a new rule, and we're going to base it on a formula. So it's going to be equals, and then here, right, this is our selected column, equals column. And that's it. So that's it. So now the format, so basically when we select the column, if this is the column, it's going to format it. Now when we format it, I want to blend the background colors. So we're going to give it a fill effect. And what I want to do is I want to start out a little bit darker and go all the way to, which is our background color. Remember, our background, because we want that blended in. And one further step, we don't want the lower border to show, so we want to clear that lower border. That's important. All right, so let's go ahead and click OK. Ah, that's perfect. You see how that works? Now, what if we were going to change this to 6? Perfect. That's the effect that we want. You see how easy that is? You see how quick and easy that is? 7. 8. Now, shapes looks a little bit nicer, but this is just so easy. So now all we need to do is get VBA to change that. Every time we select E through H, it changes this. So that's one step. Let's do that right now. Into the Developers tab, Visual Basic, and we'll go ahead and on the sheet, and we're going to use selection change. So Worksheet, selection change because we're actually making a change based on selection. We can lower this so we can see both at the same time. E4 through H4, right? E4 through H4. If we make a change there, if not intersect target, and remember this is a comma, I see people putting a period a lot, comma, range E4 through H4, and you need to end parentheses twice, is nothing, then what? Okay, remember here, if not and nothing, those are double negatives. They'll cancel each other out. When you see two negatives, get rid of them. Basically, it's saying if a user selects E4 through H4, then do something. That's all. I know it's confusing, but if you just, when you see two negatives like this, get rid of them. Remove them out of your memory, and then you can easily see if the user intersects a target between E4 and H4, if they select, then do something. And what are we going to do? Well, this is relatively simple. I want to put the column in B2. So range B2 dot value equals target dot column. That's it. All right, let's go ahead and test that out. General info, nice. Time clock, but here's the problem. It doesn't look, I mean, it looks fine, but you have to select away. Then you can see it. So why don't we select F2 just to get away? Because when we select it, I don't want the selection to be in the cell that we've just selected. I really want to get away from that. We don't want the user to stay in that cell. We really want to be out of it. So let's select F2 after that. I'll add that to the code. Range F2 dot select. All right, so now let's look at it. All right, that's a nice effect. Okay, that's great. Let's see. Okay, that's great. That's the effect we want. So we've got the tab effect, but now what do I need to do? Now I need to actually hide and show columns based on this so we actually can see it. So let's take a look at that. We're going to use a macro to create that. So into the VBA, let's go ahead and insert a macro, insert a module, and we'll call this tabs module because we're going to be running our tabs. So properties here, and just call it tabs macro. Now make sure that whatever you name this module, you do not name you cannot have sub tabs macro here. That's going to create issues. We got the same module name and the same macro name. Cannot do that. So we don't want that. All right, so let's create a macro based for this horizontal. So let's go switch horizontal tabs. And that's going to be the name of our macro because we're going to be using verticals a little bit later on. So first we want to dimension the selected column as long. And we're going to do first row as long. I need to know the first row. I'm doing them separate lines. I'm doing it properly this time. First row as long. Many times you will see me do something like this. First row. Right? Dimension them both. That's kind of improper. It works, but it's improper. So today we're going to do it right for a change. Dim first row is long. Okay, so two separate lines. That's technically the best way to do it. So I often don't do it, but it's always good that you get in good habits. So selected column equals, what is the column? It's going to be the active cell column, active cell dot column. That is the column that we want to set. We need to know the column for several reasons. All right, so we're going to be focused on sheet 1. So with sheet 1, we're going to do all of our work in sheet 1. What I want to do is I want to hide all of the rows. I first want to hide everything because we don't know. So we're going to hide everything from 5 to 84. Just going to be hidden. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hide everything and then show only what we need to show. So the first part is we want to hide everything 5 to 84. So let's do that. Dot range 5 through 84. Entire row, not column, row, dot hidden equals true. Okay, so that's going to hide it. Now let's show. Now what I want to do is I want to show 5 through 23, 24. I want to show that on the first one. On the second one, I show. So here's what we need to do. This is row 5. Excuse me. This is column 5. column 6, column 7, column 8. So we have these three columns, right? Equals column, just to show you those column numbers, 5. All right, so you see there are 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so what I want to do is, if it's column 5 that's been selected, I want to start a row. We always know it's going to be 20 rows. So we always know it's going to be 20 rows. That's of course, that's going to be set for everything. So we can figure out the last row is 24. We just add 19. We always know the last row, but we don't know the first row. In this case, it's 5. But what if we select column 6? In that case, it's going to be 25. So we're just going to, and then in the next case, it's going to be 45 and then 65. So the idea is, if I have 5, I need 5. If I have 6, I need 25. So I need a formula to convert 7 to 45. So let's write that formula now. So I need, if it's 5, so let's do that. So we can easily convert the column to the first row. That's what I want. If they select column 7, I want to know the first row is 45. So let's write a formula for that. We can do that in VBA. We can say something like the first row is equal to 5, right? We're going to add 5 plus, and I'll explain this in a moment, plus, and then we have the selected column, column minus 5 times 20. So we know, for example, let's say the selected column is 6. For example, let's say the selected column is 6. I need to get to 25. I need to get from 6 to 25, or from 7 to 25. If I subtract 5 from 7, I'm going to get 2. If I'm going to get 2 times 20 is 40 plus 5, right? If I subtract 5 from 6, I'm going to get 1. 1 times 20 is 20 plus 5. So that's how we can do it. We subtract 5. 8 minus 5 equals 3. 3 times 20 equals 60. So all we have to do is multiply times 20 and then add 5 again. That's our formula. So all we have to do in this case, let's go ahead, and we got one extra parentheses there, we don't need that. So all we have to do is subtract 5. There we go. All we have to do is subtract 5, right? So if the selected column is 6, minus 5 is 1. 1 times 20, and then that's it. That's all we do. And so that we just subtract 5 and multiply it times 20, and then we add 5 to that. And so if it's the first column, this is going to be 0. If it's the first column, 5, right? 5 minus 5 is 0, times 20 is 0, right? Plus 5, so it's 5. So that is how we get the first row. 5, 25, 45, and 60. So that's all we need to do. That little formula is going to help us determine the first row. So we need that. And then we know the last row, of course, is going to be plus 19. So we can continue with our code now that we've determined the first row just through some simple math. So now we can unhide the specific row. So dot range, and then we have the first row. We don't need dot value. That's just automatic. First, we don't need the quotes because it's a verb. First row, and quotation and colon, and first row plus 19, right? That gives us a total of 20. And then dot entire row dot hidden equals false. Now we've hidden it. There we go. That'll work. All right, so let's take a look at that. It looks okay for now. And now what we have to do is take this macro, copy it over, and bring it into our selection change, which is here. So after we've selected it, enter, and then run that macro right on selection change. So let's take a look at that. Okay, let's get rid of that space. All right, now let's run it. Okay, great. All right, but look at how our lines didn't go. Well, why is that? Let me show you that. It's to the tabs. There's a few corrections we need to make. Since we're selecting F2, it's always going to be column 2 as the selected. So we need to make a quick adjustment and set that to B2. So let's have the selected column equal dot range B2. So, and then of course we're going to need to put the width above that or below that, or put the line above that. All right, so now we've got that. Now that we've done that, we can go ahead and take a look at that. Now we've got our tabs and are working perfectly, but look at this line. It only works here. Here it's not working. Well, because this is the lower line. So let's remove those. Let's remove all of these lower lines here. Let's go down here. Let's remove this one. We don't need it. We only need it on the last one. We only need it on 85. Let's unhide it and keep all but the last one unhide. All right, but let's remove the last. Let's remove this one because we don't need that. Format cells, remove the bottom one. We don't need that anymore. We're just going to use the last one. And click OK and then remove this line here. Sorry, it's a little bit off the screen there. And I'll formatting the cells. I'll bring it up for you and remove that one. And then also this one, we're going to remove that. We don't need that. I'll bring it up here. Okay, but we're going to keep the last one. I want the one with 84. But in fact, I'll show you there's still an issue we still have to fix. Let's go ahead and look at that. Okay, that works. That works. That works. But we're missing the line here. So let's go ahead and now here's the issue. Watch this. If we format, let's go ahead and highlight these cells. All right, you see when we select all, it runs. I don't want that to happen. Let's fix that. When I select more than one cell, I want to exit out. We can do that here. Let's do it right under here. If target count is greater than 1, then exit. I don't want anything to happen. Exit sub. Now when I select additional ones, nothing's going to happen. So now I can select a lot and nothing's going to happen. So we've covered that. So there's a few issues here. Look, you see this top row is it's not working right? So let's fix that. Now the issue is that only this row, I know it looks the same, but let's take a look at this. Format the cells and let's remove this one. And then, but let's add it here. Format the cells and then add the lower one. Let's add it here. Now let's take a look. All right, now we've got that. Now it looks like we've just about got exactly. Let's put these in the middle. All right, put them in the middle. And now I like it, but I want to make it stand out more. Let's take this and make it blue and bold, the one that's selected, so it stands out just a little bit more. Conditional formatting, manage those rules. Edit the rule, format, and let's go ahead into the font, bold, and I'm going to give it our blue color, which is here. Okay, good. Now I like it. Now it looks good. Now we know exactly what one was selected. Very nice. All right, now we can start. Now you see each one we have separate. Now we can easily, let's raise this up. Now we can easily go in and see which one. Now we can start working on our individual tabs because all we have to do is connect them. So let's go ahead and work on individual. Let's add a little bit of a look to this. We'll add some pictures to that. I've got some here. I want to add a placeholder for a picture. I've got some pictures. We'll add buttons later on in future trainings, but let's go ahead and add some looks. I'm going to put a picture in the general info, like an ID picture, a placeholder, just for now. And let's give it an icon here. Put that in. Let's color this that same color or somewhere maybe a little bit darker. Okay, so now we've got that, and bring it here. All right. Bring it a little bit larger and increase this font so we have something a little bit bigger. That's good. All right, so it's looking good now. There we go. That looks even better. Okay, so now we have our employee manager. Now we have our general info, our time clock history. Now we can start filling out these fields. Now we can start getting into and adding our fields. We can add start here into the general info, and we'll put in last name, and then we'll leave space for the field, and then first name, we're going to have that. And there may be a lot of fields that you want to see, so please let me know. Address, and I'll leave this whole line for the address. It may be, we don't need this anymore. And next up, we'll put in city, and then over in state. We'll format these in a bit. Next up, let's have zip code and then maybe a cell phone number. Of course, you can change these as you see fit. It's quite easy. And then cell phone, maybe we'll put an other phone here. Just any general employee information that you might want. Of course, we need an email for the employee. And maybe position. We're going to leave some areas empty too, because as we build this throughout the weeks, we're going to want to put in some, and maybe status, like if they've left the company or something, we want to know that. And then that's it for now. We have lots of space to add this, and we do need to add this 85. I need to add an upper border on this one, so let's format the cells. And then border, I'm going to add the upper border. Now here it is here, but it's strange. You see it here. This is what's confusing. Watch. Wait, let me just cancel out of that. No change, right? Watch this. Format the cells. Okay, I'm just formatting even though it's off the screen. We're just going into format. I'm going to erase the cells, and then I'm going to put them in again, just like that. That's all I'm doing. Watch. There it is. Now, why is that? I know it's confusing. It's like, because in actuality, it was the lower line of 84. It was not the upper line of 85. You see, there's a difference, believe it or not, even though it looks the same. So if you ever run into that issue, hide it and show it, or delete it and remove it, and it'll say, but so it was the lower line of 84. Now it works. You see how that is? It's kind of an Excel oddity, but just clear it out and show it again. That's it. Let me do that again. I want to show you that. It's not here, right? I'm going to open it up, unhide. So let's go down to 84. I want to show you what's really going on here, because this is kind of an important, it's a very frustrating issue. 84 has a lower line. Right click, format the cells. 84 has a lower line, right? 85, it looks like it's got an upper line, but because of the hidden, format the cells. So this is actually 84's lower line. It's not 85's upper line. Hide it. Show it, done. That's it. Now when we tab over, click on that, it shows. Strange, but it works. Okay, so we got that. Now we understand, because 85 is always shown, right? 85 is always shown. So if it's 84's lower line, it's not going to show. But if it's 85's upper line, it's going to show. So that's the kind of a strange trick, but so that's why. So I don't know if you've understood that. It took me a while to figure it out. Many times I just didn't change it, and I thought, why isn't it showing up? But if I simply reset it to show 85's upper line, it'll show. So it's kind of an important issue, and I think many of you have run into that at times. Okay, back into the general. Let's format these. Now we've got our basic information. We're going to put, of course, the fields in white, and in future we're going to add tab orders to this. Now we've done tab orders before, but we're going to, let's do that again. We're going to add tab orders so that we can control how the user tabs. So that's going to be important. I'll fix that in a second. So state and first name, let's make those white, and let's add some borders around it. Of course, we don't want status, but we'll fix that. Let's drop this down, and then we're going to add some borders on it, format the cells, and what we'll do is we're going to use our same blue, keeping with the theme, and we're going to add a dotted line on the left side, and we're going to add on the right side just the border, the thin border. Okay, now other than status, now let's do our field labels here. We're going to format those, including status, email, cell phone, state, and address. Address we're going to bring out. Format the cells. I know that's off screen, but I'm just clicking format cells. That's all I'm doing. It's the same thing as clicking the font here. And let's go ahead and run that. We're going to add that border. That border is going to be solid on the left. And let's leave this, let's put solid on the left, and we're going to put the dotted line on the right. And then we're going to put the alignment. I want that right justified, right. So there we go. Okay, so now we've got our fonts, and now let's just fix this border here. We want that always solid border, so format those cells and put in that solid border on the right. We want that. Okay, so we've got that. We've got to look, let's merge and center this, bring out address because that's a larger field, merge and center, and then left justify. Also, we want to left justify these fields. And we're going to change fixed status right now. Left justify those. Status should have a background color of blue. All right. Let's now we're going to be using this a lot, so let's set this as a format style. So let's look at the styles, cell styles. I'm going to create a cell style, new cell style, and we're going to call this field label. This way we can easily add it later on. And we're going to call this field. So let's go ahead and do that as well. A cell style and a new style, and we're going to call it field. All right, so now we've got that. Now we can use that in the future. Add a border to this using our same blue color. Now we've got it. Now it's looking like much better. All right, so we've got that. We've got our, and let's color these in our blue. Color the fonts, give it our blue color so it looks the same. Now we can go time clock history. Now we've got our general info. And now let's focus on this picture. We can move out. It's only going to show up. We're going to make sure this picture only shows up on the general info, not the time clock history. All right, in time clock history, what I want to do is I want to add an advanced filter so that we have a limited area here for the time clock history. All of the data is going to be stored in future versions, all of it, but I only want to show a little bit of it here. Let's say 20 rows or something, or 14 rows. I only want to show a little bit. So let's add a filter onto that. So for example, if we add a date filter in the future from and then to, then we can add a date filter here. So let's click on those and use our cell styles that we just created, field label here, and then here and here we're going to add our cell styles, and this is going to be labeled that we just created. Okay, so we got our from and to. That's good. I want to put in dates here, and then as I enter dates, I want our table only to display certain information. Let's add our table now. Date will start at first, start time, and then of course end time. We also need to know total break. We're going to add more information in our actual time clock history, but this is more of a summary. So in other words, we'll have more to maybe break in, break out. I'm not sure exactly. It's going to be up to you. So you got to let me know what you want to see. Regular hours, and then maybe overtime hours. This is a little bit big. We don't need this one here so big. All right, let's format the header of our table. So we'll give it a format those cells, and we're going to use our same color combinations, very similar. The font, we'll use bold, and the fill, let's fill effects and add a fill effects fading down from our medium to our light. So that gives us our fade. And now let's add some borders to that. We have our outside borders, but let's put in our inside borders of not this one and this one, and we can put our table. Okay. That's good. And center this so that our headers are centered. Now we can add we can remove this. We don't need this. Now we can add our data tables. So let's do that here. We're gonna, first of all, we don't need any color in it. We can use white or no color. Either one is gonna be fine. White is fine. And then let's put in some dotted line borders. Dotted line in the middle. We don't need any. We're going to add in some alternating color on conditional formatting. Manage rules, new rule. We're going to use an alternating color similar to how a table is formatted. Equals mod, and I'll go over the whole mod. And that formula is row, comma 2 equals 0. I use auto hotkey to type it automatically for me. Let's format this. We're going to use, again, our fill colors. But I want to use a little bit lighter than our standard color. So let's go into more colors and choose a little bit lighter there. That's a little bit dark. Okay, that's a little bit lighter. Now we have our table formatted. Okay, nice. So now we've got that. We know, well, let's go into the payroll history. Let me copy this because I know we're going to do something very similar in payroll history. So payroll history, and I'm just going to paste it right here. But payroll history is going to be a little bit different, but at least we don't have to recreate the table again on that. And it's going to be, in this case, it's going to be our payroll date. And we want total earnings, total deductions, total additions. Sometimes we get additions like bonuses. And then net income. There may be something else that we want. I'm not sure yet. Let's keep this blank. We have the ability to add something here. here in the future. Maybe total tax deductions. Maybe we can break down deductions into like tax deductions and other deductions. Maybe we'll do that. Not sure yet. Tax, yeah, let's do that. Tax deductions, because we'll break it down that way. We have the space, so other deductions, additions, and net pay. Net pay and net income is fine. Okay. Net income. All right, now we've covered it. We may change those in the future. I'm not exactly sure, but it's at least we've got it ready. All right, so now we've got that. Let's move into the payroll detail. And in this one, what I want to do is there's so much, when you add payroll, there's so many fields. We have many more fields than we have this space. This is where we're going to add our vertical tabs. When I select a vertical tab, I want something different to show in here. When I select another one, so let's start that out. Let's build that vertical tab. First, we want to label, select options, and then I want to go over the earnings. The first option maybe earnings detail, and then the next option would be maybe tax information, because there's always tax. Pay deductions. This will be multiple pay deductions, like if you have specific pay deductions on your paycheck, and then maybe you have pay additions. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to create again. I want to select here, and I want something different to show up. I want to select here and something different. Again, we can use vertical, more spaces down here to achieve that. Let's set this up. Let's go ahead and set our format first. This one is going to be our header, and so let's bold that and center that, and then we can give that a color like. Let's go ahead and we want to give that a little bit different. This is not going to be for a clickable, so we're just going to set that as a set. Fill that, and fill effects, we can give that one of our colors here, and we'll give it a vertical. But in fact, these are going to be more of a horizontal, so let's set those up. In fact, let me set a border so we can differentiate between those. And we may add more vertical tabs in the future if we want. This is what's so great about it. We can use such a small area, but use tons and tons of data, which is really great. It's very user-friendly too. So it's a really, really great system once you can learn it. And it's actually relatively easy to program. We'll set the border on this one so we can differentiate between the title of the. Okay, so what I want to do is when I click here, but let's give these a color, format cells. And we're going to use the same principles. So except this time it's going to be horizontally. So we're going to give it a fill. We'll go from medium dark to middle color, and then use a vertical. This time we're using a vertical, and I want to go from dark to light. So now, okay, so now the idea is, and let's give these some borders inside here. Format cells, and we'll give it a lower border, just a normal border here. Okay. So now we've got them separated by borders. So the idea is when I click on here, I want something to show up here, and I want this to show up. Again, we have selected row here, so let's put that in. Let's say 67 for now. And what I want to happen is I want to add conditional formatting that shows that 67 has been selected. So let's look at that. Format cells, let's add conditional formatting. Manage the rules. And new rule, and all we have to do is set a formula that B3 equals, in this case, row. And now let's give it a format. So we'll go ahead, and this time we're going to give it a fill effects, also vertical, but a little bit lighter, and so it blends with the background. So the first color is going to be that medium, and the second color is going to be that light. This is our background. We're giving it a vertical, and from darker to lighter. And one more thing, I want to remove that border. So we're going to go to the border. That right border should be gone because we want to clear that out. Okay, now let's apply that and click OK. That's the effect that I want. That's the effect. So if we were to change this to 68, exactly, that's what I want. And maybe we're going to make this bold too. Again, same consistency, bold and blue. So let's go back into here, manage those rules, edit that rule, format it, go to font, bold, and the same color blue that we have. That way we have consistency throughout our theme. Nice. That looks good. So that gives it a nice professional software look, and that's what we're looking for. Now let's go ahead and get the code in there so that when we select that, we should have those different sections set up. And so the idea in this case is going to be the same for the horizontal. We're going to add additional verticals down here below 85. And I want to copy this area here so that it's really the same exactly, so that it looks the same. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to copy 65. We're going to place it. Now we've got 4 different tabs here, so we're going to do it 4 times. 1, 2, 3. So now we got 4 different ones. That looks good. So the idea is when I click pay deductions, I want it to show up here. When I click tax information here, and so on and so forth. So we had to duplicate that. In order to do that, let's go ahead and get in our highlight. Now when we select it, we could be selecting anywhere from 66 all the way down to 129. So the selection change is going to be from that range. So we want to make sure that we add that in. So into the developers, let's go ahead and add that in and continue on with our selection change. We've got here for our horizontal, let's add in some code for our vertical. Again, if not intersect target, comma, range E66 through E129. That's our range. So if the user makes a selection any one of those, then do something. Is nothing, then. But now we have to make sure, I don't want them, if they select this, select option, I don't want anything to happen. So we want to make sure that they're only selecting these. And if they select nothing, we don't want anything to happen. So let's put in a check. If they select nothing, nothing should happen. If they select the word select option, nothing should also happen as well. So let's add that in to the code just in case. If target.value equals empty, or target.value equals select option, then exit sub. Okay, so we've got that covered just to make sure in case they do. Then we're going to exit the sub. Otherwise, let's run a macro. Let's call it switch, even though we don't have this macro yet, switch vertical tabs. That's going to be our macro. So let's copy that and go back into our tabs macro, and we will add it in. Sub, paste. Now we've got our sub. All right, in this case, the first thing I want to do is let's go ahead and add in some information. All right, first thing we're going to do is we're going to dimension the selected row as long. We need to know that. We also need to dimension the first row just how we did before. No spaces. All right, now we also need to know what the selected row is. Now it gets a little bit tricky here because what I need to do in this case, if it's 66, if they've selected 66, right, row 66, we want to show from 65 through 84. If they've selected either 67, let's go over that again, 66, 86, 106, or 126. So they could select any one of those, right? Then we must show from here only. That would be 65 through 84. Let's fix that. I'm going to create this all the way up here, right up here. Bring this target sub, bring it up here. So that means anytime we select more than one row, we will not get the bug. Again, like that. Okay, good. So if they select 67, 87, 107, or 127, the tax information should show. So what is common on all of those? The last digit. This is one way to do it. 6, 7, 8, 9. So I need to know what the last digit. I need to know, is it 6? Is it 7? Is it 8 or is it 9, right? Because even if they select pay additions, because they could select any one of these rows. So if they select pay additions, it's going to be 129. Pay additions is always going to end in 9, right? 129, 109, 89, or 69. So let's get the last number. That way I can know, that means regardless of which one they're selecting, I know it's the last item on our list. So I want to get that. And we can use that in the code. We just need to know what the last row is. So we can do something like this. Let's go into our tabs macro, into our vertical here. Our selected row is going to equal right. Right is going to get us the rightmost character, the rightmost number. That's what I want. Active cell dot row. It's the row that we've selected. 1. That means I only want the last character only. I don't want the last 2 characters. I want the last 1 character. Minus 5. Why are we minus 5? It's going to get us 1, 2, 3, or 4. The selected row is going to be 1, 2, 3, or 4. Why is that? Let's go over that again. If they've selected 66, our last character is 6, right? And if we minus 5, that means 1, right? 6 minus 5 equals 1. 7 minus 5. That way I know they've selected the first, the second, third, or fourth. So I can extract 1, 2, 3, or 4. Regardless of which one they select. That's what I want to know. I want to know 1, 2, 3, or 4. So I need to, regardless of the row. So that's going to help us. Again, if they've selected this one, 129, we're going to get the last character, which is 9. In this case, we are going to minus 5. 9 minus 5 equals 4. I know they've selected the fourth one. Once we know that 4, we can then easily take a formula and show only 125 through 144. So let's do that now and continue with our VBA code. We've got our selected row, so let's look at that. Now let's continue with sheet 1. With sheet 1, we're going to be focused on there. Well, first of all, we need to hide everything. So let's do that. Dot range 65. That's going to be our first row. We want to hide everything, right? We want to hide all the rows first. That's always important. 65 through 144. 144. That's going to hide everything. Dot entire row dot hidden equals true. So we're going to hide everything, all the rows first. Then we're going to show only the rows that we're focused on. So let's do that. We have to get our first row first. Let's go at first. Our first row, we need to know our first row. First row equals 65 plus, remember, our selected row minus 1 times 20. We'll go over this. Times 20. It's very similar to what our last one was. All right, so for example, if they've selected the first value, remember, we now know this is going to be 1, 2, 3, or 4 based on this formula, right? So let's say it's 1. If it's 1 minus 1 is 0, times 20 is 0, that means our first row is 65. However, what if selected is 2? What if our select option 2 minus 1 is 1, times 20 is 20. So 20 plus 65, that means our first row is going to be 85. All right, let's do it with third option. If they've selected the third option in the menu, 3 minus 1 is 2. 2 times 20 is 40. 40 plus 65, so our first row is going to be 105, right? The first 105 is going to be our first row of our third option. So basically what we're doing is we're converting regardless of what they've selected. All right, we're already running the code. Didn't mean to do that yet. Okay, so we're not quite finished yet. We've hidden everything. You see the code ran, we've hidden everything, but now we need to show it. So let's do that. Let's run our code. So we've got our first row, dot range. Let's do we're going to have to now show it. Our first row, we know our first row, and quotation mark, colon, quotation marks, and our first row plus 19. All right, there we go. Now we've got it. Entire row hidden equals false. Right? We're going to show that. We want to show that. And of course, we have to set up B3 for our conditional formatting. Remember, B3 is going to tell us for our conditional formatting, we need to put that row in there. So let's do that. Dot range B3 value equals our selected row plus our first row. Right, we know let's say our selected row is 1. our first row. So that will get us our first row. Let's say our select row is 1. Our first row might be 65, so it's going to be 66. If our select, so this puts the row number back into B3. So that's how that works. And let's just select another, because I don't want the current dot range F2, and then select. That way I want the existing cell select. So that's going to select it. All right, let's take a look at that. Let's unhide this because the code hid it. Unhide it. Go into payroll detail. All right, we don't need this anymore. And let's click on earnings detail. Nice. Okay, we don't know. Let's just it's hard to see earnings detail. We put the text in there. Tax information. Tax, just for temper, tax info. Pay deductions. It's looking good. And pay additions. So I'm just marking them just so we know, just so we can see. Looks like everything's hidden. So now earnings detail, tax information, pay deductions, all separate range. Perfect. We're good. Now we've got our vertical tabs, we've got our horizontal tabs. Very nice. I think we have to do a little bit more work here. Okay, let's take a look at this. We've got our vertical tabs, but our payroll detail, let's go back and show that. Payroll detail. We have to hide more. We have to hide more. We ended this at 105 before. So look, we're showing this. We can't show that. We need to hide more. In other words, now our columns extend all the way to 144. So when we hid these tabs, we need to increase that. Let's do that in the code, because now we need to increase our hiding. So before 84 was enough, right? But now we've added vertical tabs. So let's go ahead and 144. Let's change that to 144. We need to hide more now. Always need to hide more. Okay, so we're good with that. Now when we click the horizontal tabs, we can hide that. But look, we're missing the bottom row again. So let's take a look at that, because last time it was 84, 85. Now it's 144. So let's fix that. Again, let's take a look at that. Format the cells. Again, same issue, but different cells. Now it's 144, 145. Unhide it. Hide it. Show it. Perfect. There we go. That's it. All right, now we're good. Now we're showing that bottom row. Good, good, good. All right, now we've got our vertical tabs, we've got our horizontal tabs. Everything looks just right. I don't think there's any issue for right now. And good. When we select option, nothing happens. That's what we want. Select option, nothing happens. Select any blank row, nothing happens. Only if there's text and only if it doesn't. So that's working great. Let's add in some information in our payroll detail. We're extending this training along a little bit today. I also want to increase this. I want to give more space to that employee name. Merge and center, and then over to the left. And all right, let's set up our borders there. We can give, so that way we can show a nice large employee name and have plenty of space when we do. This is going to be a drop-down list in future. We're going to drop-down list, and as we select an employee, all the information is going to show up here. That's what I have planned. But of course, my plans can change based on your comments and suggestions. So if you're still watching this and you're still awake, please comment below, share, and like it. I want to know what you want to see in your employee manager so we can try to get in as many recommendations as possible. We've got a lot of blank space. We've got a lot of ability to add and remove. We could even add more tabs. So with this ability and this application, there's a lot of room. We have a lot of space. We're going to add a picture in here. Although I think we're going to probably do that next time because we're running out of time. But let's go ahead and add in some information into the earnings details so that at least we can get that filled out with some idea. So we'll start out with pay type, because this might be hourly. They might be hourly or salary, so we want to put in a pay type. And if it's salary, we want to add in a frequency. It could be yearly, weekly, salary. Frequency. These are going to be spacers, and then we'll skip a row and go to hourly amount. But I don't want hourly amount always, right? I want it could be salary. What if this is going to be hourly, or it could be salary. So this label is going to change based on this. It should, at least. So let's continue on with our labels, and then we'll add overtime amount, because there might be an overtime rate, so we want to add that in. Next up, we might want to put in something like hours per week. and then weeks per year. That's okay for now. We're going to probably add a lot more to this in the future. Let's set our fields, and we've already going to home. We've already set our cell style, so we know that's a label. And then of course we're going to change the border. That thick border is going to. All right, that looks good. All right, and our fields here. We have our fields set. So let's go ahead and set that to our field. Cell styles, field. Good, that way we have consistency. Tax information. Let's put in some tax information here just to give an idea. It's different in every country, but we can start off with number of dependents, kids or family members that you pay on taxes. Dependents, I think I spelled that right, probably not. State or territory. And we can remove that, we don't need that now. And then maybe social security number. SSN, social security number, or ID number. Sometimes we have like ID numbers in certain countries. And then we can put in, we'll leave this blank for now. I don't know what we're going to put in there. Also want a table. I want to show like certain federal, state, local taxes. So let's put in a table. I'm going to merge and center this. And then I'm going to create a table. I want to create below that. I'm going to put, let's say, tax name, enter tax name, because there's different types of taxes for every country. And wage percentage, that's the percentage of the wage that it's going to be taken out of. And base unit would be or maximum or base limit would be the maximum. So if there's a maximum amount that you can earn per year, and then they don't tax you anymore, we want to put that in. Some taxes have that. And then maybe a maximum cost, which is going to be calculated maximum. I think something like that. Let's format those. We'll center that, and then let's give it a format so we can format our tables consistently. Fill is going to be our medium fill, which is going to be here to light. And then we're going to use a little bit of darker fade on the above one. So we're going to call this, I don't want to merge and center it all the way. Just the 4 columns. Merge and center here. And then let's give that a name. We'll call that federal. You can change it. Federal and local tax, because we need the tax deductions. All right, good. We'll bold that. Control B, and then format those cells. And then we'll give it a font. Well, that's okay for now. Fill. We're going to fill it, which is going to be a little bit darker of a fill, so we give fade. So we're going to use our medium to medium light here, which is just, that way it'll blend better in here. We can give it a border here, format those cells, and we'll give it a little bit thicker border on the left, and the top and the right. Inside the borders, we'll give it the, format those cells, and we'll give it a basic line here. All right, good. Now let's go ahead and format the inside cells. Using the same consistency, the dotted line for the center, and we can do the top. And we're going to fill it with white and then use conditional formatting to use that. And here's a little trick I'll show you. We're going to use a formula. You know the mod formula already, so we've been over that. And then what I want to do is I want to format the same color we colored before, the same fill color, but when we don't have the custom fill. Remember, we don't have the custom fill colors. We used the color before, but it's not here, but it is here. When we go to fill effects, it's here. That custom color is right here. So if we use the same custom color that we did before and we click the same, if we use the 2 colors but we use it the same color, that way we can use our custom color. So that's the same color we used before, and there we go. That looks nice. Okay, so let's put this as our field. We'll add one here even though we don't know what it's going to be yet. And give that our field style, and then also here is going to be our label. So that way we can quickly create these and our field label. All right, so we don't know what this one's going to be yet, but we got an idea of that. And I want to also add in pay deductions here. So we're going to copy the current table. and I'm going to add some pay deductions here. There we go. So let's add those in, and I'm going to do the same thing for pay additions. Paste that table in here. Now we can customize it quicker. So we can do payroll deductions. And let's say the deduction name, because we want to give it this we can do so they can deduct certain deductions on each paycheck. Deduction name and amount. What is the amount? And also frequency. You know, it could be weekly, monthly, bi-weekly. So we should set a frequency on here. And also we want to know the annual total. It's easier when we annual the total. So let's say you have a frequency deduction of monthly, but your payroll is, you know, weekly. It's easy once you have the annual total, we can then create that payroll check per check deduction, not based on this amount, not based on this amount, but based on this amount, the annual total. We'll do the same thing for pay additions. So we have addition name. We will have amount, frequency, and annual total. All right, that's good. That looks good. And I'll make this bold, Control B. Pay deductions, I'll make this bold, Control B, and tax information, also consistency, bold. All right, that looks good. Now we've got a really good base, of an application that we can really build on. I think we're going to leave it here because I really want to get your opinion. I want to know how much. We're going to add in a picture. We'll go here. We have more space for employees. We're going to add an employee. So there's a lot of space. There's a lot to build on this. But now you've seen how to do horizontal and vertical tabs very quickly, very easily without using shapes. So I'm glad to show this to you. I'm really looking forward to part 2. We're going to continue to build this out based on your comments and suggestions. So please share this, like this, and looking forward to bringing you next week. Thank you very much for joining me.